Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Hariva, Hariva, Gaura Hariva. What this class is supposed to be. Because there's no book, no verse on a board. Maybe we're supposed to read from a comic book or the newspaper or something. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 4, which is called Sati Quits Her Body. And we are looking at text number 17. So I'll just read through it since it's not on any board. Karno pidaya niryadyad alkalpa ishe dharma vitori oshinivir nirbhir osyamane chindyat prasya rushitim asitim prabhushchej jivam ason api tato visrajet sa dharmaha. Please repeat. Karnao. Both ears. Pidha. Translation. Sati continued, if one hears an irresponsible person blaspheme the master and controller of religion, one should block his ears and go away if unable to punish him. But if one is able to kill, then one should by force cut out the blasphemer's tongue and kill the offender, and after that one should give up his own life. Purport. And the argument offered by Sati is that a person who vilifies a great personality is the lowest of all creatures. But by the same argument, Daksha could also defend himself by saying that since he was a Prajapati, the master of many living creatures, and one of the great officers of the great universal affairs, his position was so exalted that Sati should accept his good qualities instead of vilifying him. The answer to that argument is that Sati was not vilifying but defending. If possible, she should have cut out Daksha's tongue because he blasphemed Lord Shiva. In other words, since Lord Shiva is the protector of religion, a person who vilifies him should be killed at once, and after killing such a person, one should give up one's own life. And this is the process. But because Daksha happened to be the father of Sati, she decided not to kill him, but to give up her own life in order to compensate for the great sin she had committed by hearing blasphemy of Lord Shiva. The instruction set forth here in Srimad Bhagavatam is that one should not tolerate at any cost the activities of a person who vilifies or blasphemes an authority. If one is a Brahmana, he should not give up his body, because by doing so he would be responsible for killing a Brahmana. Therefore, a Brahmana should leave the place or block his ears so that he will not hear the blasphemy. If one happens to be a Kshatriya, he has the power to punish any man. Therefore, a Kshatriya should at once cut out the tongue of the vilifier and kill him. But as far as the Vaishyas and Shudras are concerned, they should immediately give up their bodies. Sati decided to give up her body because she thought herself to be among the Shudras and Vaishyas. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:32, Striya Vaishyas Tata Shudraha. Women, laborers, and the mercantile class are on the same level. Thus, since it is recommended that Vaishyas and Shudras should immediately give up their bodies upon hearing blasphemy of an exalted person like Lord Shiva, she decided to give up her life. Karnao pidhaya niryad yad akalpa ishe dharma vityari asraibhir nirbhir osyamane chindyat prasakhyah Rushitim asitim prabhushchej jivam asun apitato vrishajat sudharmaha. Sati continued, if one hears an irresponsible person blaspheme the master and controller of religion, one should block his ears and go away if unable to punish him. But if one is able to kill, then one should by force cut out the blasphemer's tongue and kill the offender, and after that one should give up his own life. So I think the first thing I should comment on is the last point of the purport, where Srila Prabhupada says that Vaishyas and Shudras and women, if they hear blasphemy, then they should give up their own life. So then, always in classes, there's someone who thinks, then I have to give up my life because yesterday I heard someone. There's always someone who jumps to that conclusion. So we always have to explain. So if this were actually to be followed, then we'd all, in one sense, have to give up our lives, because Kalo Shudra Sambhava, everyone in Kali Yuga is born as Shudra. So everyone is in this class then. But in Krishna consciousness, in this Krishna consciousness movement, if we take up the chanting of Hare Krishna and the service to Krishna, then that means to become a Vaishnava. And Vaishnava is even beyond Brahmana. Brahmana is, as we hear, Brahmana is holy in society, but that society, Varna Ashram Dharma, is material society. So in material society, the Brahmana is the topmost class compared in the social body to the head. So that is, yes, he's leader, he's guru, that's the position of Brahmana. So he should not give up his life, he just goes away. To give up his life, that's considered brahmahatya, a sin. But still, this is in terms of material society. Brahmana is an upadhi. It's a material designation. So Vaishnava is beyond that. So Vaishnava means someone who is directly engaged in the service of the Lord. Brahmana may or may not be. If a Brahmana is a devotee, then he is a Vaishnava Brahmana. If a Brahmana is not really a devotee, then his function in society is material. He's giving knowledge, he's a teacher, doing yagyas, this sort of thing. But without serving Krishna, then it is a material function only. Exalted but material. In mode of goodness, yes, but that is still modes of material nature. So anyone who takes up in this age the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare is a Vaishnava. And that means serving the lotus feet of the Lord, thus dear to the Lord, as we pray to the spiritual master, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya. Having taken shelter of Vishnu Pada, the lotus feet of the Lord, the pure devotee is very dear to Krishna. And this is, of course, this is a prayer addressed to the spiritual master, but we should not think that this is excluding other devotees. Only my guru is like that, and everyone else is just ordinary person. Because Srila Prabhupada himself, he once said the measure of the success of the Krishna consciousness movement will be when the devotees, he didn't mean some limited class of devotees, but when the general devotees of the ISKCON movement are respected, honored, and worshipped by the rest of society as being sadhus. So we like to think of the movement becoming successful. Obviously, all devotees hope for that day when Krishna consciousness will become, of course it already is successful, but actually prominent and very influential in society, guiding society. So we may think that day will come when X number of books are distributed, or so many temples are open, or X numbers of devotees have joined, or X amount of money has been collected. Yeah, that may be part of it, but the real influence over society will be gained when this particular point becomes realized, that the devotees are worshipped. So that means all devotees then, they must be in this position. They must be understood to be Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya. So, therefore, every devotee is dear to Krishna. So then if it is said that Brahmanas who are still within material category, it is not correct for them to give up the body upon hearing blasphemy. They should simply block their ears and go away. Then that is even more applicable to devotees, all devotees. So please don't make plans to go home and hang yourself if you hear someone criticize Krishna. That's not the appropriate response. We should all, Prabhupada desired us to become preachers, expert preachers. So the real solution to this, for devotee in particular, is to stop that blasphemy by preaching. If we can do this, if we can point out, get the person to understand that he's making a grave mistake, he's just being a fool, an idiot by speaking like that, and we change him, then that is the real solution. Of course, for some people, maybe many people, they are so ignorant that it is very difficult to penetrate that ignorance with preaching. That is why there is need of Varna Ashram Dharma, because there are so many people like that in the world, who you cannot find an opening with words to enter their heart, because there's so much covered by Rajagun, Tamagun. So that's why, you see, as Prabhupada said, we can discipline. You see, discipline, the word discipline. Actually, what does the word discipline mean in its true sense? You can hear in the word discipline another word. What's the other word? Disciple. So this is the real method of disciplining a person. You make them a disciple by preaching. You make them a devotee of Krishna. So that's by Shastra. You see, that's by Shastra, applying Shastra, the scripture. But then there are some people who cannot take Shastra, so then there's another word, Shastra. Shastra means discipline by stick, you see, like disciplining. This is more in the sense of disciplining an animal, you see. An animal generally doesn't respond simply to words. The stick has to be at least shown, threat. And sometimes they have to be punished in order that they can be trained. And this is not for devotees, Vaishnavas or Brahmanas to do. This is not our business to go around with big sticks and hit people on the head because they misbehaved. There is the Kshatriya who is supposed to do that. As Prabhupada states clearly here in the purport, a Kshatriya has power to kill any man. So this is from the, also directed by Shastra. The Kshatriya does not act whimsically. He is a servant of Shastra. He is a disciple himself of a Kshatriya, belongs to the Dvija class, this twice born. They are also second initiated. But their dharma, their duty, is to, we have to use the word enforce Shastra. The Brahmanas, they preach, they make disciples, they teach those who have ears to hear Shastra. But for those whose ears are blocked up by stool, whose brains are covered by stool, who are in the darkness of ignorance and want to stay there, then they are offensive and their behavior is all wrong, and they create an inauspicious influence. then they are to be disciplined by force by the Kshatriya, even up to the point of killing. Kshatriya has right, under the injunctions of Shastra, as Prabhupada says here, to kill anyone if their offenses are severe enough. So that's the first point to settle. And then another point is, because this is, I think, for a lot of people in the Western world in particular, particularly a place that is known for being very liberal, too much liberal, like this place, Amsterdam. Now, people have a hard time understanding, well, what's the big deal? You see, they feel that individualism is the most important principle, that everyone should be free to say what they like. This is what is really important. So we should all be free to say what we like, even if it is offensive to some people. Then those people, they don't have to be there to hear it. But there should not be some overarching law, justice system, power, authority, which is telling people what you have said is wrong, don't say it or you'll be punished, even killed. That is tyrannical, that is authoritarian, that's bad for us. You see, what's good is that if I, have an urge to do or say something, I should be able to do it, get it out. If I'm forced not to do it, then I become all, messed up in my head, and that's very bad. So we should all be free. That's the most important principle. And this is what people think. And then they cannot understand. They see in Srimad Bhagavatam such a statement as this, and they think this is repressive, this is medieval. What is all this? Why? Why can't we? If I don't like Krishna, why can't I say it? Why? You see, why are you going to force me? But if we look at what's behind this, you see, behind everything, there is philosophy. Many people, they find philosophy tiring to think of and discuss. Oh, it's too much for my brain. But actually, everyone is following some type of doctrine, philosophical doctrine, whether they know it or not. You see? So, in my website, I've been for some days discussing a little bit one book with an interesting title, The Unbearable Lightness of Being, which is a book written in the 1980s by a Czech author. And so what is in this title, The Unbearable Lightness of Being? It's actually very nice and quite deep. That this Western, because he's referring to Western culture. So this Western culture is lightweight, and this is very much in our line of thinking. Of course, this is some book written by a European author, but the idea there is very much suitable in the Vedic conception. There's this word laghu in Sanskrit, which means light, and it is the opposite of guru. Guru, and you look in the dictionary, it has at least two senses. One we know, we say guru, spiritual master, but another sense means heavy. And these two senses are completely compatible. Because when there is real knowledge, then that is heavy, that is serious, you see? Just like I was saying yesterday, or Prabhupada said so many times, that when Arjuna surrendered to Krishna in his bewilderment, he could see no other course, he couldn't understand what to do. So he surrendered to Krishna. You are my guru, I am your disciple. And then from that point on, the Gita becomes very heavy. You see? Prabhupada says, there's no more, because previously in their relationship, there were light talks. They would eat together, Krishna and Arjuna. They were friends, Sakya Ras. And there's nothing wrong with that because that is Arjuna's liberated position. But Krishna put Arjuna in illusion to speak Bhagavad Gita, this book which is still with us 5,000 years later, as we want to know what God has to say. There's other religions, and we can hear in these other religions what Saint Mark or Saint Luke or Saint Peter said. This saint, that saint, some angel Michael. The Quran is spoken by an angel, supposedly, Michael, to Muhammad. But if we want to know what God himself has to say, and then there's Bhagavad Gita, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. You see, Krishna himself is speaking. So this is of all religious texts certainly the most important and the most weighty, the most heavy. You see, so this is the nature of transcendental knowledge. It is heavy. So this author, Kundera, who wrote Unbearable Lightness of Being, one of his points behind this title is that Western culture is the opposite, lagu. You see, and he gives a lot of reasoning for this, and one reasoning is, and actually he explains it quite clearly, that there's no understanding in the West of consequence to our action. That there will be a consequence in time, in future time, for the things we do at present. And it's a very interesting line of discussion he makes. He points out in history, he gives the example of the French Revolution. You see, in France, they're very proud of their revolution. And they have this, their national hymn. This is some revolutionary song from that time. You see, but that revolution was so horrible and bloody, and it was really barbaric. You see, I mean, even you compare to other revolutions. I mean, I'm from America, so it's not that I'm saying proudly, but at least you can say there's some logic. There was some logic that there was the British Crown was in charge of the United States, and the same is in India too. The British were ruling India, and there was a revolution against that, and the British had to leave. And then the Americans or the Indians, they started a government, and that government is still there, you see. But not so in France. They had they were chopping heads, guillotine, and then those people who made the revolution, they were kicked out later on. In fact, other revolutionaries came after them and chopped their heads off, and then it kept on going like that, totally out of control, until Napoleon came, and he was a dictator. You see, their revolution, as they say, liberty, fraternity, equality. But then the dictator came. Because they were just cutting everyone's heads, one after the other. It was totally just a bloodbath. So that's the actual fact of the French Revolution. But this Kundera points out the French are very proud. They're very proud of their history and their revolution, and Robespierre, very great man. But he says, if this epoch of French history were to repeat, you see, like maybe every 100 years, the same thing would happen again. And then the French would become very, distressed. Just suppose it would be scheduled somehow as a cyclical time, and they would know, tomorrow it's going to start, and they would all run for the hills, save my neck. They're going to start chopping heads in the plaza again. We better get out of here. And they would think of Robespierre as a monster if he would, every 100 years come back and chop everyone's head. They would be very afraid of him. But because he's gone, it happened once, and this Milan Kundera, he quotes this German saying, "Einmal ist keinmal." You see, one time is no time. If it happened only once, then it might as well not have happened at all. So then history in the Western conception just becomes an affair of words. It's something happens, and then it's very quickly exactly what happens is forgotten. It becomes a story that people change. It goes into books. Scholars discuss it. It just becomes words. And then it can become anything you want. And a monster can become a great man, you see. And this is how history. And then later on they changed it again. Oh, he was a monster. And then 100 years after that, there's a historical revision. Some new historians coming. No, he wasn't a monster. He was a. This is in Romania. Romania, there was this Vlad Tepes, who we know as Dracula. He's a historical figure. Vlad the Impaler. He used to take people by the hundreds and thousands and impale them on stakes in public squares. Means they would be set on the sharpened stake, in the stake going up their anus, and they would sink down gradually, still alive, until the stake would come out of their mouth or their neck. You see, just by their weight of their body, and they would be up there screaming and crying in the public square. Everyone would have to see this. Once, according to the history, he took his lunch, he took his feast, a dinner, with these people. He had them set up all around his table so that he could eat and watch them, you see. And once the Turkish army tried to invade his kingdom, and he impaled some 60,000 Turkish soldiers. It was like a forest, you see. And he made a forest of soldiers on stakes, and when the other part of the Turkish army came, because that was the first part, and then the second part came, and when they saw this, they got so scared, they just ran back to Turkey. We're not going to deal with this man, is crazy. They ran. So he's obviously some kind of total barbarian, savage maniac. But under communism, Ceausescu, he declared Dracula a hero, a national hero. So he became a great hero in that period. Now they're not so proud of him again. But you see, this is how it goes. If some dictator wants to justify the terrible things he's doing, then he reaches back in the past. Here was our national hero, Dracula. I'm just doing what he did, you see. He's a great man. So anyway, then history doesn't have any weight. That's the point. Einmal is keinmal, you see. It happened once, we don't really know what happened. And it's gone. So this is the Western conception. Everything is lightweight, you see, laghu. So the same with our speaking. I speak some words, they go into the air, and then they're gone. It's gone. So what's the big deal, man? So I insulted you, but now, it's 5 seconds later. You see, that's gone now. Why are you still upset? Now we're in another time. You see? Now you can insult me if you want. That will be gone. We can use bad words, we can say anything, do anything, because it's all going to be gone in a second. So what's the big deal? You see? So what is missing? What is missing is the understanding of karma. And this Kundera in his book, very interestingly, he has one of the main characters thinking about this. These characters, they think these things, they ponder these kind of issues. And so he imagines a different world. He said in which there would be a different world, in which there would be a different universe, in which there were different planets. And the human beings, after living on this planet, would take birth on another planet. And they would continue what they did on this planet, remembering what they did, and it would be seen if they could do better. And then they would take birth on another planet and another planet. So this is actually very similar to the Vedic conception. You see, the point is there's karma. That what we do does not simply disappear into nothingness as soon as it's done. It remains, and the reaction returns to us. So our speaking, the words we say, you see, that is heavy, that is not light, that is heavy. Our speech, everything, it has potency, what we do. And the potency can be realized, can be understood even centuries, many births later. One can still be suffering. Still be suffering, or on the other side, still be enjoying the reaction of something he said, bad or good. But Western people don't know this. They're not trained in this understanding. So therefore everything is lightweight, nothing really matters. So what's the big deal? You see, that's why they say this. What's the big deal if I blaspheme Krishna? What's wrong with it? You see, because I just say something and anyway, it's gone. You see, why you make such? But no, And actually, the fact that someone should be stopped, someone should even be punished, that is beneficial even to that person. It is beneficial to the persons around, of course, who would be forced otherwise to hear this degrading blasphemy, because this is what happens. If someone goes on speaking nonsense, it is such a polluting vibration that other people are affected, as Prabhupada explains here. It is a great sin. One becomes sinful having to hear that. That means one's own mind and intellect will become corrupted. And sins will sprout in the consciousness, and one will have to act on these sins, being forced to act sinfully because of having heard this nonsense. So it is certainly beneficial for other people if blasphemy is stopped, but especially for that person, you see, and society in general. If they know we should not speak these words, and then this is the keeping the society pure. This is keeping in check the influence of the lower modes of nature, the demoniac nature, asurika bhava, demoniac impulses. It's keeping this all in check. And this is beneficial to society. But today people have no discrimination. They do not know what is the difference between good and bad. And in fact, because this materialism is so strong, like this word is used here in the last line, asun, which means life, as Prabhupada explains. Asun. So, also, there's the word asura. It's related to this word, asun. So, asura, asu, this life, ramyate, to enjoy. Asura is one who thinks the point of life is just to enjoy. I have only one life. Like when I was young, when I was a boy, and my father, because when I was a boy, then TV was still a pretty new thing. So I can remember when I was about 8 or 9 years old, my father brought a television home. You see, we had not, until that age, I didn't know what TV was. It was some neighbors had, but. And so then I started watching TV, and in those days, there was a advertisement that used to run repeatedly, hair coloring company called Clairol for women. And the catchline, the motto, the phrase to catch your attention was, "If I have only one life, let me live it as a blonde." You see? So you see these women with, black hair or brown hair, red, and they would change their hair and suddenly they're very beautiful and glamorous. Before, no one's looking, but suddenly all the men are, eyes popping out because they have blonde hair on their head. So this is so if I have only one life, you see, this is asura. I have only one life, so let me live it as a blonde, live it up, you see, enjoy myself to the max. This is asura, this is what it actually means. So people are like that due to this materialism which says we have only this one life. Yeah, so let's enjoy. And this is all people understand. So if I enjoy blaspheming, if anything, nonsense, terrible sinful activities, then let me do it. And they think this is dharma, but this is adharma. So sati, the word sati means very chaste. So she's the most chaste, saintly woman. And so she's showing the example that this is her own father, you see. Her own father, Daksha, is blaspheming Lord Shiva, but she will not tolerate that. And that's another thing today. People on the base of bodily relations, then they think, oh, yeah, it's not good, but he's my relative, he's my son, daughter, father. Then I can't, You see, and this is what's corrupted India. India's gone to hell because of that. Because the bodily, Prabhupada used to talk about this all the time. Of course, it's changing. ISKCON is doing very well in India, I think better than any other country, which is logical. But otherwise, in the beginning, it was very difficult to make headway. I mean, the Indian people would give material support, they would give money, but they didn't want to become devotees themselves. And Prabhupada used to, speaking with Indian people, he would be very abrupt with them. You see, they would come to see him because that's the culture, sadhu, so let us go see him, get darshan, benefit for us, you see. But what he's asking, That's too much, you see. But let us come and see him and get his ashirvat and all of that. And that's the idea of sadhu generally in India. The sadhus who are really big, they're all bogus, you see, like Shirdi Sai Baba. You see, so big, every taxi has a picture of Shirdi Sai Baba in it, practically. And Shirdi Sai Baba's motto is, never fear, I am here. Put my picture in the front, I'm showing ashirvat, and you'll be okay. You see, and you don't have to do anything for him. Maybe put a flower there in the beginning of the day. But he's going to take care, you're going to make money, taxi drivers are going to make lots of money if that's what they think. So it's all one way, you see. It's this idea of God or the God-man will be my order supplier, then I can have faith in him. But if God or the God-man is asking me to surrender, oh, this is too much, you see. So anyway, as Prabhupada used to, sometimes directly, he would say very abruptly to Indians who would come to see him, that you will not help this movement. You are too busy trying to get your daughter married, you see. And they would go, what are you saying, Swamiji? You are too busy getting your daughter married. And then they would look at each other. What is he saying? This is all you care about, getting your daughter married and this thing and that thing and business and this, that. You run around, spend all your energy for that. So you have no time. Prabhupada would tell them like this, I know you. You have no time. No time to serve Krishna. But Krishna, then he would go on preaching. But Krishna is telling you to serve him only, to surrender to him. Sarvadharma Pritya, give up all this other thing. And this would be very astonishing for them because they never heard sadhu speak like that. So when someone devotes himself to these materialistic affairs, bodily relationships, family, then he becomes compromised, you see, compromised, and then this is the whole story. This is the history of Mahabharata. Why on the other side we see Krishna and Arjuna, but who is on the other side? Great personalities like Grandfather Bhishma, like Kripacharya, like Dronacharya. These are great saintly persons, but due to, Prabhupada explains, due to bodily considerations, due to their being dependent on that family arrangement, then when the line was drawn, they're on the other side. And so this is unfortunately what's going on. You see, sometimes I'm visiting in India, visiting house of devotee, you see. So there's a nice devotee in a family, and others are also devoted, you see. But as you go through the house, you see pictures of Krishna, then there's a picture of Shirdi Sai Baba also. You know what? And then I don't even have to ask, I know what it means. I know what it means. Yes, we don't like Shirdi Sai, the devotee will say, but our sister who's living here too, she's still, and therefore we have to keep this picture here, Shirdi Sai, you see. So this is corrupting. So we see Sati is uncompromising. Her own father is blaspheming Lord Shiva, but she will not tolerate. She does not say, well, to Lord Shiva, sorry, you see, that's my father. What can I do? So, because she being sadhvi. Sadhvi means saintly woman. She that means one who sees clearly. She sees clearly that this is sinful. A person who will compromise with sin means they do not understand that it's actually sin. You see? It's like, if you're going to take rest at night and you pull the coverlet back and there's a cobra there, a cobra snake in your bed. Now, who is going to lay down in that bed? Only someone who doesn't know what a cobra is, who thinks, oh, some living entity is going to take rest with me tonight. Okay, I'll also lay down. It's okay. You stay there. I'll sleep on this side. He must not have any understanding what a cobra is. You see, that's the only reason he can lay in the bed. You see, so persons who agree or compromise with something like this, they're in ignorance. But Sati is not. And so, because he's father, and because she's considering herself as woman, then she will not kill him, although she has power to do that too. She could have done that. Being Sati means the consort of Lord Shiva. But also there's consideration to set example. So then she rather sat down and ignited the internal fire and took her own life in that way, showing that such kind of talk is so polluting one should not maintain the body after having heard it. So these are some relevant points from this verse and purport. So I'll stop here. Are there any questions? Yes?
It's not related to that, but I had an argument with the possibility, the argument that God knows everything and we still have a free will. And my problem in this was that if God knows, cannot make a mistake, that indirectly he has to influence the reality to go as he knows the future is supposed to be. How can that be together?
I don't understand your question, so...
I mean, according to what we say, God knows future, past and present.
Yeah.
Therefore, if he knows that in 5 minutes there will have, let's say that the harmonium will start playing, then someone starts playing the harmonium, then in 5 minutes it must happen. Because if he would be wrong, he can't be wrong, then his knowledge must influence the reality indirectly.
No, that's illogical. If I know that you, like yesterday there was a feast served, of course it was Pandavanir Jalikadasi, so we didn't take, but on a day when a normal day when a feast is served, and I know that they have prepared gulab jamans, and they are offering these gulab jamans to the deity, very nice, big brown gulab jamans, soaked in sugar water, and I know that you, of all the different preparations, you are a total fan of gulab jamans. So I see in the serving room, prasadam serving room, gulab jamans are there, and I see you walking into the serving room. I know that in a few minutes you'll be eating gulab jamans. But does my knowing that force you? Is that forcing you to eat the gulab jamans? No, that's because of your taste. I know what your taste is. The motivating force for the eating of gulab jamans is you. It's not me. But I know your taste.
Yeah, but the difference is that I can surprise and actually not feeling like eating gulab jamun, while God not supposed to be able to be wrong, and therefore I do have to eat gulab jamun.
No, because if you eat gulab jamans, then that is your choice. If you don't eat gulab jamans, that is also your choice. That's your choice, but the motivating force is you. And if God knows that, you say, anyway, this is a whole, I've talked about this on my website. This is not even in determinism. Determinism means that there's a law behind the way things happen. But even in determinism, they allow for choice, because choice is part of determinism. The way things are, if you say things are determined by the way things are, then that means choice is the way things are. So choice is there too. So even determinists, you see, because we're not programmed. We're not programmed. We are creatures of choice. And that's the way things are. So if someone knows what you will choose, knowing your nature, because this is how Prabhupada explained it, that Krishna knows our nature, so in that way he knows what we will do. So, but we are following our own nature. We are just choosing what we want to do. Like the example in determinism is, suppose a scientist figures out from studying brain states, he can see what a person will do. So if he goes to a restaurant with another person and he scans that person's brain, and that person is going to order, then the scientist, he knows what he will order. He can write it down on a piece of paper and fold it up. It doesn't influence that person at all. The person orders and eats, and then after he's ordered and eating, then he unfolds the paper and says, you see, before you ordered, I wrote this down, and this is what you ordered, because I know your brain state. Then it's also said, if he would tell that person that before he ordered, I know you're going to order the salad and this and that and this and that. Then this person, by knowing this, that the scientist had said this, then his brain state changes. So then he may, as you say, he may say, well, I'm not going to order that. I'm going to be contrary. You see, but that's because he's in a different brain state now. This is the deterministic, material determinant. If you say everything's ordered, determined by brain state, but as soon as you come to know that this person knows what you're going to do, that puts you in a different brain state. And so according to that brain state, you may say, no, I'm not going to order this. You see, but in any case, it's this person. It's this person who's making the choice. It's this person. That person's knowledge does not affect him. You see, in fact, that person's knowledge may affect him to, he may then do opposite. You see, so Prabhupada always explained that this is why we're here in the material world, because we are determined to do opposite of what Krishna wants. Krishna is asking us to surrender, we say no. And that's why we're here in the material world. So, this is our responsibility, and this whole line of logic to try to throw it back on God is just to justify us being here in the material world. So if you want to continue thinking like that, then you can, and you can just stay here in the material world forever. Because you won't get out until you surrender to Krishna. And if we go on making up these, well, if Krishna knows, then, it's him, it's not me, it's his fault. That's why I'm here. It's his fault. As you keep pointing the finger at Krishna, then you just stay here. And that's why we are here. Because we don't want to surrender to Krishna. All right. So you stay here. And go on blaming Krishna, but you're here because of your choice. And we are choosing to subscribe to this type of philosophy. That is also our choice. Like Prabhupada said, man proposes, God disposes. What we want, God gives. But the determining factor is, like it says in the Bhagavatam, ruchi. Ruchi. Yatat karma tata ruchi. There is our karma and there is our taste. So in the midst of our karma, there's our taste, what we want, we are making choices. And in this way, our karma goes on and on and on and on. Because we're getting what we want. So until we want Krishna, we will continue to be in karma. Is there another? Yes, Mataji in the back?
I just wanted to ask about this topic, Sai Baba, etc. Somehow, exactly, you made a good point, because the last few months I'm meeting so many people who are addicted to Sai Baba, and I'm even discovering that some old friends of mine, they're also somehow got in touch with some Vedic philosophy, and that somehow the first thing was thrown in front of them, Sai Baba. And I actually, because some of them are really my old friends who like me, I like them, something like that, for 20 years. So I actually don't know how to deal in this situation. Because I can say also, oh, he's rascal, but they can take it very, very heavy. And in the same time, I try to keep in touch with them, that they can get purified, and that I give them some prasad and some books. And I'm afraid to be too heavy.
Well, you don't have.
Give me some.
You don't have to necessarily be heavy. If they are not, as long as they're not trying to tell you that Sai Baba is Krishna. But if they're telling you that Sai Baba is Krishna and you go, well, okay, but then you're getting yourself in a lot of trouble. You don't necessarily have to be heavy in the sense of, trying to, as they say, ram our philosophy down their throat and, tell them right away Sai Baba is a demon. You can take a more gentle path, as long as they're not being aggressive with their doctrine, which is that Sai Baba, they chant. I've seen these, I don't know which Sai Baba, there's different Sai Babas. I was talking about Shirdi Sai, who is dead. He's actually more popular than the Sai with the big hair. But anyway, in either case, they think that either Shirdi Sai or Satya Sai is Krishna. And I've seen these people, they chant bhajans to Krishna. They're bhajans addressing Krishna. But they mean Sai Baba when they sing these bhajans. You see, they're in their mind sing, and this is namaparat. This is namaparat. So, if we due to our relationship with these people, if we let ourselves be exposed to namaparad and this bogus, you see, it's worse than Mayavadi philosophy. It's actually worse than because Mayavadis, at least, their goal is the impersonal Brahman, and it's a kind of nondescript, you see, no person attached to it. But these kind of people are actually saying this ordinary man is God. This ordinary man is Krishna. You want to know who is Krishna? Here he is. You see, I saw when I was a new devotee, there was one bogus guru who came up very big for a few years. Guru Maharaj Ji, he called himself. And his followers, he's a little fat kid. You see, he was supposed to be 16 years old. He was actually much older, but he looked young. And he used to say he was 16, like Krishna. And he dressed up like Krishna. And he used to carry photos of him with, the crown, and he'd have the flute and yellow dhoti, peacock feather. Little ugly fat guy dressed up like Krishna. And they used to, oh, you're a devotee of Krishna, here's Krishna. You see, and show this ugly picture. So if one tolerates such thing, then as the lesson of this verse and purport, then we're becoming polluted. So that's the question. If these people are, not trying to preach to you these sorts of things, then you can go lightly with them. But if they are saying such things to you, then you should not tolerate. Otherwise you get in trouble.
They're quite innocent people. They are not so much involved. They're just interested in Vedic philosophy, and then you understand. It's not that they are chanting or something. They still don't chant. They don't take instructions. They're just a little attracted like that, because this is the first what they got. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem so serious. Yes?
About this Dracula in Turkish and the sticks, you couldn't recover the sticks. It was always here that it was a kind of Turkish way of punishing. Do you think that we have this? I'm sorry for this question, but it just something in mind.
This question doesn't have anything to do with Krishna consciousness. I'm sorry. I don't know. I think you should ask some historian about that. I don't have an answer to that. Yes?
I'm afraid our question doesn't directly follow from your lecture, but you mentioned the word medieval, and the word medieval has a negative connotation in Western culture, since they presume that medieval culture was a backward culture compared to what we have now, modern Western culture, right?
Sure.
So, but that is for a good reason, because the God-centered society, as they tried to live it at that time, didn't produce any, for some time it produced positive results, but then it turned out to be not working. People became oppressed and tortured and killed because they had other convictions, or they had a different view on life. So, and we as Vaishnavas, we also propose that a God-centered society is the ideal society for mankind, right? So how do you see that we can make it work in a God-centered society?
That's quite a leap from one thing to another. Now the conclusion of your question is, how do I see a God-centered society is supposed to work? Well, I see that it's in Prabhupada's books, the answer to the question, so you should just read Prabhupada's books and the answer will be there. For me to answer your question completely, I'd have to sit here for the next year saying all the things which are there in Prabhupada's books, because that's what Prabhupada's books are about God-centered culture and society and how it should be done in this age. And that's why there's a Krishna consciousness movement. And as far as the first part, that's quite a jump from one thing to another in the way you phrased the question. But for us now to presume that we can look back 1,500 years ago and then impose a value judgment from our position is, I think, very arrogant. We have no idea really what was going on 1,500 years ago, except what's in books written by people who lived only in the last, in our lifetime, or a few, these historians, they're contemporaries. And this was the point I'm making. History is something manufactured out of words. We have no idea if what we read, I remember when I went to school, in the science books, and they're trying to indoctrinate us in evolution. I remember myself how they would give this example of the moths There's a kind of moth called peppered moth. And this was observed, so it was said, that when cities became industrialized, and then the soot of the factories was making the walls and the trees, everything dark, then the light-colored peppered moths in the cities, they disappeared. Dark color that became very prominent. This is called industrial melanism. Melanism means to become dark. So because of industry, then this mutant strain of peppered moth, which was dark, which was before unnatural, became very prominent in the cities. You'd see them everywhere. And the light ones you would only see in the country. And the reason being because of natural selection, then the light-colored moths, if they alight upon a soot-blackened wall, the birds would see it and eat it. So they couldn't exist in the cities. And I was taught this in the school. They, nice little drawings of the different colored moths on the black wall. And now a book has come out showing this is all bogus. That the person who proposed this theory in 1953, and science fell in love with it. So his proof for this theory was, he used to surreptitiously, secretly, he would nail these light-colored moths to the to the tree so that the birds, they couldn't get away. The birds would eat them. And then he would show other scientists, see, the birds are eating these moths. And then it got into all the science books and everyone believed it. You see, this industrial model, it became an icon of evolutionary theory. And now a book has come out exposing that it was all cheating. And just the other day I saw something on the internet that just absolutely blew my mind when I carefully read this article. It's posted on yahoo.com news that the NASA has discovered a planet in another solar system, the constellation Taurus. And then there was even a little photo, a little JPEG image. You see a planet and then it says Reuters News Photo. And you think, wow, the telescope photographed this. Wow, amazing, a planet in another solar system. And then when you read it carefully, you see, you go through, you enlarge the photo, you clicked on it. No, people might not do that. So I clicked on it, and then there was a caption saying, this is only an artist's conception. This is not a photo. But, there it doesn't say that, it just says it's a photo. And then you read carefully the article, and everything is taken away. The caption says, the planet was discovered by NASA, and by the end of the article, if you read it carefully, they didn't see a planet. They didn't even see a planet. They saw it in another, a star, and there was a dusky disk around it, and a hole in the disk. And one astronomer is quoted, "We think the hole in the dusty disk around the star was made by a planet passing through it." Then another astronomer says, "Of course, it could have been made by other things." And then this one mentioned 3 other things, but the chances are very likely that it was a planet. This is all garbage, totally garbage. It's just lying propaganda. And the only reason that people don't protest against is because they've been brainwashed by science. It's a faith. They believe in it. They believe what the scientists say. So scientists can come out on international news and lie, bold-faced lie, make a title, "We found a new planet," and by the end of, if you read the article, you find it's not true. They didn't see any planet. They didn't see, and the books are filled with this. The school books, everything we learn is full of this kind of lying propaganda. And then it's from this that we look back on history according to the evolutionary paradigm that's been emblazoned in our head, programmed in our head. This is the conclusion, is that we're doing better than they did. And this is due to because of the fact that we are brainwashed by Darwinism to think like that. Evolution means everything's always getting better. So of course, year 2004 is better than 500 AD in the Middle Ages. Of course, because Darwin said so. You see. So I think that this is very arrogant and very incorrect for us to presume in our period of time that we can look back. We have no access to what was happening 1,500 years ago. You see, we have no access. We have no time machine to go back there and see ourselves. We just have books written by meat-eating, wine-drinking, nonsense people whose brains are full of all kinds of speculations and inaccuracies and prejudices and doctrines, modern doctrines. And they tell us, "Oh, there was very, very bad times back then. You should be glad that we're living as we are now. It's much better." But as Prabhupada said, the death rate then was 100%. The death rate now is everyone's still dying. So how are things better? You see? How is it any better? And how can you even say what it was like then? And then there's enough evidence to show that this whole evolutionary idea that things are improving is completely bogus. It's completely nonsense. You can see, if you want to determine, if you want a good marker, a good a notation for understanding the intelligence of people, look at language. You see? Judge by language. Judge by the language and judge by the conceptions that are expressed in that language. And when you go back 1,500 years, 2,000 years, 2,500 years, 3,000 years, you look at the known languages, they are much more sophisticated than the languages we have now. You see, they're much more complex. The grammar is much, much more complex. Their vocabulary is very, very diverse. And the conceptions are also very, very exalted. They have so many words for spiritual things which we don't have now. You see? And our language, our modern language, it's where are the new words coming from in modern language? They're coming from the ghetto, they're coming from the prison, they're coming from rap music. You see, they're coming from the drug addicts. All these words like cool and, I don't know what words they but these come into our language and people pick them up and, like the word bad. You see, when I was a boy, bad meant bad. Now bad means good. You see? Oh, that's bad, man. It means that's good. And this is all coming from the lowest sections of society. And so our modern language is, it is degrading into grunts and groans, into caveman talk. You listen to this music on the radio, you can hardly understand what they're saying. And yet we're so arrogant. We are more advanced, than the people 2,000 years ago who were speaking classical Greek and classical Roman. And I'm just talking about the Western world. When you get to Sanskrit, then, that's really, really exalted. Those people, that's what Prabhupada said. Real human civilization is simple living, high thinking. But because our values are materialistic, we think high living and no thinking. You see? High living, drinking, and everything that goes on in downtown Amsterdam. Yeah, that's great. And as far as thinking, turn it off. You see? Just turn the brain off. Just experience, you see? Don't think about anything, just experience it. And that's an animal. That's what animals do. They just go through life experiencing. They don't have capacity for thought. So this is where this progress is leading, so-called progress is leading us more and more into animalism. So anyway, I think we should be very cautious before we just assume like that. There's this nice saying, assume, the English word assume. So when you assume something, you make an ass out of you and me. You spell it A-S-S-U-M-E. So as soon as you assume something, you make an ass out of you and me. We should be very, very careful about making such assumptions. And unfortunately, the whole modern educational system is based on assumptions. It's based on assumptions of Darwinism. It's based on assumptions of Freudianism. It's based on assumptions of Marxism and so many of these isms, inauspicious isms of the modern world, which is just atheistic religion, atheistic faith. You see? It's faith, but it's atheistic. There's no science in it. There's no facts in it. It's ultimately all faith. Anyway, it's 9 o'clock. We have to stop. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.